Okay, so let's continue from where we left off with this. Now, we have our camera here. We have the lighting, we have the monkey, we have the postament. Now let's start tweaking things. We're going to tweak Eevee. And right now, I'm not really sure exactly what kind of result we're going to get with all of this. We're going to improvise a bit. So let's make our scene a bit more complex, just so we can see kind of like how the results are going to go. So I'm going to add another object to the scene. I'm going to add a cylinder. I'm going to make sort of like a studio for this. So I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees so I can model the studio out. I'm going to scale this out big time. Let me just zoom out a bit. Yeah. I'm going to go to faces. I'm going to be deleting this and this. Let's go to shaded viewport so we can do this easily. A bit, and then I'm going to delete these. And then I'm going to move this up a notch, something like maybe this. And then I'm going to extrude this, adding a bit of thickness to it. And from here, what I want to do is I want to take this face right over here. And I want to extrude it and move it into place so that I can create an actual floor with it. I'm going to straighten it out. Just give me a second here. Kind of make this as straight as possible. Maybe even go over here and do it by hand. This. Then extrude this further. Scale it out a bit. I'm going to put a couple of edges here, which are going to hold this because I'm going to add subdivision surface to it. Okay. And right now I'm going to add the subdivision surface modifier 2 times. It's smooth. Now if we go to the render, we can see that this actually it's a surface. So it's receiving light and all of that good stuff. If we press F12, we're actually going to see the ground plane and the shadows that are being cast. So let's give it a material. I want it to be something whitish, not this white though, maybe something a bit more on the gray area. And kind of really sort of rough. Like really rough. Yeah. So now that we have a studio set up here, which is going to be work as our floor and whatnot, let's come over to the rendering settings and start to tweak this. Let's add ambient occlusion. What ambient occlusion is going to do is it's basically going to give us these deeper shadows where surfaces are touching, like here, for example. Look, now it's gone, now it's there. This is really important. You're going to have this in games as well. We can tweak the settings of the ambient occlusion, but I find that these ones usually work well. The distance is nice. Let's try adding bloom. The bloom effect, usually, it's not quite as visible here. We're going to try to give it a bit of a color bluish, and you can notice it in some places. If we increase the threshold, not going to do much for us. Let's press F12 and see what we have. We can add depth of field, of course. Increasing the size will increase the depth of field. The volumetrics is usually a quality setting. What we can also do here is tweak the shadows a bit. So let's increase the size of this so we can have nicer shadows. And that's pretty much what we kind of want to have here. We can maybe try to go over here to the monkey and add some subsurface scattering to it and see how it goes. You can see that the more we increase it, the more scattering we get. If we increase the scattering radius, you can see that it plows straight through the material. Here we can choose the subsurface scattering color, or reddish, for example. And if we press F12 to see our result, you can see the kind of subsurface scattering that we have. It's really kind of going through the object. This is something that we didn't cover during the materials section. However, what I really don't want to have here is have subsurface scattering. Maybe just a tiny bit, like 0.1 or something, or 0.05, or even lower, like 0.01. Yeah, something really loose. One thing we can also cover are the camera settings. And this is really interesting. So let's go to the camera view so we can see exactly what it is that we're doing. So this is the focal length. This is the length of the lens. The lower it is, it works like an actual camera lens. The lower it is, the wider the view, until it becomes really distorted, as you can see. The higher it is, the flatter things start to get. Usually something between 50 and 60 would get the job done. 50 is the default one, so use that. Depth of field is something that you can apply. All of the other properties, like for example the safe areas, show you what's going to be rendered actually, like the safe areas of an actual camera. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If we press F12, we can see what kind of an image we've cooked up. So here we go, you can see the light bouncing here, like the ambient occlusion on these points, right at the bottom of this, of the postament. A bit of the subsurface scattering is passing through the monkey. Cool. So let's go to our final thing that we want to show for today, and that's what we do when we have Cycles on. So Cycles is way slower. As you can see, it starts to calculate right now. It's becoming way slower in terms of, well, basically everything. It's really way more photorealistic, way more. The longer you keep it here, the better the preview you're going to get. Here are the samples. These are your quality settings. The higher the max samples are, the longer it's going to render, but the better image is going to pop up. The denoise option is actually going to do something like this, which is going to try to give you a result without the rendering noise, which in the viewport I wouldn't advise for you to have. I would advise for you to have something like this in the final render, but that's a whole different subject. Here pretty much you can do things like volumetrics and other things, but we're not going to cover this in detail because it's not a part of the video game pipeline. If I press F12 right now, it's going to start to render. It's going to render really slowly. As you can see, for a small scene like this, we have a render time which is in the approximation of 39 minutes, and that's on a Workbench PC, which is a really high quality. But what you're going to notice is that even with this, when it's still not rendered as much, you can see how nicer the shadows look, how nicer the subsurfacing looks, how nicer everything looks, like all of the materials, all of the ambient occlusion, the lighting, the bounce light, everything looks way better. It's really a dramatic difference. But what you need to know is that, I'm going to cancel this. What you need to know is that with Eevee, you get results that are way closer to what a game engine is going to output, and it's real-time thing. So basically that's something that's going to be really useful for you when you're troubleshooting your models for a game. You need to go to Cycles when you're making a beauty shot, a render that's not something that's going to be close to video game quality. So what I would really suggest is concentrate on Eevee and do things like this before you go to Cycles and maybe start doing things there. So that's it for the rendering and lighting part of the video. See you in the next one.